If things are super toxic, things being thrown at you, words that are just mentally abusive, or the kids are caught in the middle of all this emotional trauma, you're stuck between, I want to get out of this house, and reliving the War of the Roses. Welcome to another episode of I Do Until I Don't. I'm Marvin Mendez.
I'm Joshua Stern. We're with Stern Mendez. Go figure.
Look at this, our first use of this box. Pretty cool, huh?
And we're going to talk today about when you should move out at the start of a case, which is a very common issue and actually a somewhat complex issue despite being very easy to articulate. There's a lot of considerations and frankly, a lot of human emotion that's going on here. You know, people are tense, they're worried, and more than not, they're uncertain. There's a lot of things up in the air before a case gets filed, before it goes in front of a judge, before you have a parenting plan. And so we're going to talk about what to consider and how to go about it. And this is where I hand the basket over to you. I'm a potential client. I come in, things are tense at home. Let's say I have two kids and, you know, we aren't getting along. I'm on the couch or she's in the guest room, whatever it might be. I want to separate as soon as possible, but I don't even have a lawyer, much less a case. What would you tell me?
I think it's such a complicated process, right? Because you're going through a lot of emotion, you're going through a lot of anger, you want to choke each other, you want to kick the other person out of the house, you want the other person to help as much as you can if you have kids involved, for example, and then you're stuck with having to deal with the financial component. Can I afford two homes? Can I go buy a separate home? Do I rent a home? I don't have any answers on what the potential parenting schedule may be. I don't know what I'm going to be on the hook for, potentially maintenance, child support, dividing assets. What can I afford? And so you're stuck between, I want to get out of this house, keep things peaceful, and you're stuck between being in the same home and reliving the War of the Roses situation. I don't want to leave the house.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to leave the house? I'm going to make things very uncomfortable for you, right? So you are stuck in a situation. And I think, you know, we were talking about this yesterday. It's a lot easier to give people advice as an outsider looking in.
Right.
Because you, from an outsider, are being pragmatic, are being reasonable, are not making emotional decisions. So what do I say to clients in that situation? For me, I think very early on in the case, I'm always trying to encourage people just stay in the house. Let's figure out what a potential temporary schedule is going to be, what the two of you can potentially afford financially, what the ultimate goal is going to be. I think if you get out of the house quickly without an order that sets forth some parenting time or some financial responsibilities, you're then looking at how to keep parenting time that the other person may interfere. Because I've been on both sides of the coin.
Of course.
I've been on the side of, well, there's no order in place, so
Right.
You don't have to give him or her any parenting time. And then unfortunately you feed into that people's ego, right? I think the logical solution is, if you want to have a peaceful situation, let's figure out a temporary parenting schedule. Let's stay, like you said, one on the couch, one in the guest room, whatever it may be. And let's figure out how to share responsibilities or try to maintain the status quo as much as possible. So from the early onset of a case, I discourage anyone leaving the house. I think if things are super toxic, right? If you have, you know, things being thrown at you or words that are just mentally abusive, or the kids are being caught in the middle of all this emotional trauma, I think it's probably just better to get out and go somewhere and we can figure out a solution.
Yeah.
Because everyone's always scared of, well, if I leave now, I'm not going to see my kids. Sure, on a temporary basis, you won't, right? But then the court ultimately gets to it. But
Ultimately,
Yes.
it could be 3 months. It could be 6 months. So, I mean, you know, think about it. You're in a position now where you need permission. I wake up, I go downstairs, I see my kids, life's good. I move out. I can't go downstairs and see my kids. I got to go to the Daily Center and I got to ask someone, when is the next time I can see my own kids? I think, you know, there's kind of two considerations that you raised that are, I think, really compelling. One would be sort of the uncertainty or opaqueness of the early phases. So where could you move? Are you renting or buying? What's your budget? When can you see the kids? Are you in the same school district? About a million things. And then you also have, I think, the more immediate, what is the emotional harm that you're experiencing being at home? Really, I'm going to elaborate on all your points because I agree. We kind of work backwards. How do you want the case to end? What are your objectives? What are we trying to accomplish for you? And then working from there, when should you move? How should you move? And, you know, is holding out to be well situated in the case worthwhile, or is the cost, the conflict, and the stress just too great. And you're saying, look, this is the optimal outcome for the case. But man, if I spend another day here, I'm going to pop. In that case, the conversation changes.
I think the difficulty in telling the clients to just go ahead and get out, or
Right.
tell the other person to kick them out, right, is that a court can't kick you out of your house.
Exclusive possession.
Sure, but that's a very high bar.
It is.
You can't just say, well, this person makes me feel uncomfortable.
No.
Right? Or this person
They don't load
plays
the
the
dishwasher
music
right.
loud.
Yeah.
They don't load the
So
dishwasher.
the music
right.
thing, I think you could act on if it's too loud, but I won't get into that.
Yeah.
I really,
I don't think this is a time for personal stories, but
bad neighbors. No, I mean, but so that's an interesting side note. It's sort of like the gradations of harassment. When is something annoyance and when is it intentional harassment? But that's a kind of a different podcast.
How sensitive do you think the courts are to
Non-physical abuse?
Folks' sensitivity, right?
It's so, I mean, come on, right? So judge dependent, so day dependent, the lawyer dependent. How do you articulate it? What can you explain? But no, I mean, look, your personal hangups, your little pet peeves. I don't like it when he gets up early and runs the garbage disposal. No one cares. That doesn't, that's not actionable.
What's the legal standard, should we say, to get someone out of the house?
Usually you're looking at a form of harassment. You're looking at a situation where it'd be in the best interest of the child or of the moving party to get separation due to either unlawful or I'd say unjustified behavior.
God, that's such a lawyer response.
Yeah, so like
much
you said, what is the legal standard? Well, if you don't like them, no, but I mean, the reality is it's a high bar. You have overlapping property interests. You're talking about depriving someone of use of a very, perhaps their largest asset and their only form of shelter. And so to put someone out of both of those things, to deprive them of a property interest in the US and to unhouse them, yeah, you need a high bar because it's tough, man. And the reality is there's situations where it's appropriate, but it can and has been weaponized inappropriately plenty of times. Courts are going to scrutinize it. Back in the day, and I don't know how common it is, a lot of cases started with orders of protection. It was a lot of people's opening move instead of an exclusive possession. And it was a huge problem. I think they've tamped down on that quite a bit. But I mean, let's be real about what we're talking about, And
I think pursuing a frivolous order of protection that then is proven to be right or real, right? Then there goes your credibility.
That's total self-harm.
Your first thing is, wait, so you use this order of protection to get this person out of the house, to keep them away from the kids, to manipulate the parentage component. Sure, you get your immediate result, instant gratification. You get them out of him or her out of the house.
Right.
But then down the line, legal fees, court delays, mediation process, credibility issues. I mean, just the list
But you
goes
have
on
two
and
different
on.
ways to do fees. You bring something that's inappropriate without a factual or legal basis. I mean, there's actually a variety of ways to attack it, even with the Domestic Violence Act. 100% hyperbole and desperation kind of put people in bad situations. And I think the desire to get separated immediately because of emotional discomfort, totally valid. It is a horrible situation people are in. I'm sympathetic. I wouldn't want to be there. But from a legal perspective, we have a myriad of considerations in addition to that.
Human ego can be very sensitive. And I think your ability to stay in the house or not really depends on a lot of that.
Yes.
It's, well, like you said, dishwasher wasn't done when I said it needed to be done. Or he looked at me one way, or she said things the other way. I think what mostly gets impacted in the situations, if you have children, are the children. Now, a lot of kids, when divorce comes up, they're like, I saw this coming. You guys are better off apart. But a lot of time, they're stuck in the middle of dealing with mom's anger, dad's anger, the parents' anger. You come with me. And people tend to manipulate that process, involve the children, and impact them. And I think, the interesting about that is then if you're in the house, now the other person uses this as a weapon. Well, look how he's treating the child. Look how she's using the child. Look how she's alienating the child, or he is doing that. So at the end of the day, when someone comes to me and says, what do I do? This is absolutely miserable. My advice is always stay in the house. Sure. No one can kick you out. Don't create any issues that would warrant a frivolous order of protection, because anything you do or say or yell will trigger somebody calling the police and then escorting you all, or saying, let's just go our own directions. My goal is always to tell people, stay in the house, put your ego aside. Do not fall for any bait, right, that they're laying for you, or any trap that's going to trigger your emotions. Just walk away. Let's figure out what's more important. You getting out of the house or figuring out a temporary parenting or financial schedule. And you will see, I think, that the more you're in the house, once a divorce is filed or proceedings are started, the less the other person wants you in the house. And the more that they are desperate to come up with any temporary solution to get you out of the house. Otherwise, you're stuck there for how long does a divorce case take nowadays?
I don't know.
I mean, I've had cases wrap up in a month because everybody was kumbaya, and I've had moments that, what are we, 3 years, 4 years into a divorce case right now? Luckily, the parties are living separately,
Yeah.
but we were able to get a temporary order that says, here's what we can do under these financial circumstances. In that situation, Josh, both parties could afford to financially have separate homes. But what do you do when, I don't know, you had, let's say, your garden variety divorce
So
case? What happens there?
here's how I think of it. When I was learning to swim, one of the ways they would teach you to dive is they would put different like items in the pool at camp, and you dive down, you hold your breath, you kind of work in your stroke, and you come up with as many items as you can. And the test was to see how efficiently you could dive, but also it's kind of hold your breath. And it's sort of when you're in the house, you're holding your breath, you're underwater. And the question is, how many issues can you resolve or make progress on before you have to come up for air and leave the house? Ideally, we can get under there and we can deal with the discomfort. We can deal with the parenting time, the financial considerations, and really a lot of the smaller issues that would make like personal property separation easier. But there's scenarios where it's too deep, it's too much pressure, you can't hold your breath anymore, and we can only do a few things, whether it's parenting time or a temporary budget. And that's okay also. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about taking care of the client and hearing what they need and what the family needs. So if we got to get out, we're going to figure it out. But if we can hang on, if we can get deep and pick up some of these points that will make a difference later, I prefer that, in parenting time being the most important stuff.
You know, on the financial component, I think the very important part in determining whether you stay in the house or you can afford something elsewhere is getting your client to immediately understand their financial circumstances and be transparent, right? Just give me a balance sheet. What's your income? What are your assets? Where would you get money for a new place? Where would you stay? Can you afford a 3-month lease? Do you get an Airbnb? That situation. And I think them understanding that a lot sooner and then sharing that information with the partner helps then the other partner also then determine, well, I can't keep this place. I'm not going to be able to afford it. We only make so much money. Or
you have a lot of rational conversations about keeping the house.
I've had conversations. I would haven't
irrational ones. Yeah, it's irrational ones. I mean, let's be honest about what it is. Let's go back to being thrown out. It's an emotional piece of property. You love it. You bought it. You imagined a future there. It's your shelter. You improved it. You probably spent blood, sweat, and tears making it what you wanted it to be. And all of a sudden, some guy you've never met before downtown says he can't see it anymore. You'd go nuts. And so it kind of dovetails into that. I think a lot of people are irrational about the house because it has a tremendous amount of emotional import. And when you have kids, it's not just your house, it's the kid's childhood home. And all of a sudden we got this big prize that kind of belies what I would call its simplicity on the balance sheet, which is it's an asset. To your point, I do think figuring out whether you can keep the house is smart. I would say it's incredibly important and probably an early consideration.
I think it's an early consideration. And I think that's why it's important that families have some semblance of understanding of their respective financial circumstances. Not in anticipation of divorce, but really just understanding how the family finances work, such that if events like this were to happen, if someone dies, let's say, unfortunately, can I afford this? What's the lifestyle going to be? How are we going to manage these particular situations?
Well, hold on. I started this by saying, what if I was a client coming to meet you?
Yeah.
And I had 2 kids. I'm sleeping on the couch. So what was your advice to me now? I want to leave,
It depends.
And no, that's all we got for you today. That's
my advice would be very specific.
Yeah.
Do not leave the house.
Yes.
Until we can come up with some sort of agreement as to how the finances are going to be managed, what a temporary parenting schedule may look like.
Yes.
And how close you may be to the family, right?
100%.
I think that's my biggest response to everybody. Do not leave yet. If you leave the house right now, it's going to be a lot harder and it's going to take a lot longer to get you a temporary financial outcome or a temporary parenting schedule. And I think that's the importance in this particular topic. It's a temporary schedule, meaning we're going to put a Band-Aid on this until we come up with a full resolution. And that's going to take a while. But in the meantime, before you leave, we shouldn't be leaving the house without you knowing what a potential schedule is going to be, whether you can manage that schedule, right? Because a lot of people are always like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And then they realize, I can't manage this. I have to
Right.
work. I have activities. I have commitments. Because on a normal day schedule, you said earlier, I'd like to wake up and see my kid every
I
morning.
would love that.
Sometimes, I don't know if you're like me, I don't see my kid because she gets out and she's gone. Or when I come home
Sounds like
late,
she's running away.
no, but she's got her own activities. She wakes up at a different time than I do, right?
Okay.
Normal life is a lot different than when it is divorce. When you're going through
Yes.
divorce, you think you can pick up the kid, have overnights,
Right.
have your 7 o'clock meals, which just doesn't make sense, right?
No.
Kids doing homework or whatever activities, and you think you can do much more than what you are normally accustomed to. So I think there needs to be some sort of understanding of what you can do.
Yes.
Stress tests some of this stuff. Fine, you want the schedule? What's it going to be like? Are you going to be on time? Are you going to be late? What issues am I going to foresee if you can't fulfill
Are you in
these
the same
obligations?
school district? Can you get them to school in the morning? Can you pick them up?
Exactly.
But look, the short version, and we could do this all day, is don't move out right away. Don't move out because you're anxious or concerned. Speak to a lawyer, make a plan, and it's part of your holistic approach to the start of the case. They will walk you through the considerations and how to get prepared for whatever you need to do to separate.
Yeah, and don't expect an immediate resolution for a temporary order.
Just don't expect immediate resolution in domestic relations court. It'll be easier.
Yes, all of that.